Whenever I'm in Bangkok, you'll find me searching out all the places and street eats I can't get when I'm back in Australia. But this video isn't just a street tour. I'm going to take you out to eat and then we're going to come back to the kitchen so I can show you how to make some of this amazing street food at home, like the sizzling lat na, the special Thai salabao buns, and also the porkiest pork noodles.
Thank you.
This is the fanciest lat na I have ever seen before. Now, if you get in here, the noodle is sort of like, it's really been kind of crispy fried, and then there's this egg on top. Oh my goodness. Who's gonna get the egg? Who's gonna get the egg porn? Someone. Gao, are you gonna get the egg porn? Let's have a look. Yes, look at that. Look at how jammy that egg is. Oh my goodness, so good. Okay, so we have egg. The other main component of lat na is the gravy sauce. So that's very important. So noodle, gravy sauce, some veg. Oh yeah, it's a good one. It's all about the gravy with this dish, and that is really good gravy. I do have like my mum's home recipe for lat na that I've made a million times, but this is something else. This is really cool. I need to try and make this back in the studio. Yum. So you would think from watching the street vendor and like that dramatic sizzling and stuff that happened that this would be a very complicated dish to make at home. But actually there's some pretty cool technique here with cooking the noodles and the egg and stuff, but we're gonna go through it together and it's a lot simpler than you think. And is it worth it? Oh my goodness, it's so good. The whole point of a really good lat na is actually the fresh rice noodles. Now here in Thailand, the rice noodles are really fresh and lovely and soft. If your rice noodles are very firm, just pop them in the microwave for like 40 seconds to a minute until they soften up a little bit. There's like an oil grease layer between each strand of noodle or sheet of noodle, and that'll kind of warm it up and allow you to separate the noodles just like I'm doing now. So that's like the little trick to getting rice noodles ready to stir fry or cook. Now we have our rice noodles here. The next part is the deep frying. You can check whether your oil is hot enough just by dipping a wooden spoon in there, and you're just waiting for some lovely little bubbles to start forming around the bottom of that wooden spoon. That tells you the oil is hot enough for frying. Gently drape them around. Be careful, that oil is hot. I'm creating kind of like a little nest of noodles here, and then just let those noodles cook and fry and crisp up in that hot oil. They're not going to turn golden or brown or anything like that, but after about 5 or 6 minutes you'll notice that the edges of the noodles are quite crispy and firm when you kind of touch them with your spider or your spatula. At this point you can crack your egg into the middle of your nest of noodles and then use a spatula to kind of just gently splash some hot oil over the top of the egg. This is so that we can cook the egg white, but I do want to try and keep that egg yolk nice and soft so we get that beautiful like egg yolk food porn right at the end. Now when the white looks cooked, you can use 2 spatulas to carefully lift out your nest of noodles and egg and place it onto a plate. Now you can see if I press on that egg yolk, it's still nice and wobbly. Oh, so exciting. Okay, so let's talk about how we make the gravy for this dish. Now, I did talk about how the very humble or home version of lat na is very simple, and the one I cook at home typically is just pork or chicken. We're going a bit special today though. I'm using some chicken thigh. I'm also using some fresh squid, and then this is, in English it translates to like pickled squid, but it doesn't taste pickled. It's not tangy. It's here in Thailand it's called muk grop. That's right, isn't it? Got it. hot. Grab means crispy in Thai. Muk means squid. If you're in Thailand, you'll be able to get this. If not, just leave it out if you're elsewhere in the world. It just has a crispy squid kind of texture and flavor. One more secret ingredient before we start stir frying the sauce. It will add extra umami and flavor to your sauce. In Thai, we call this tao gio. It is a yellow soybean paste, often sold in Asian stores everywhere. I can get this back home in Australia as well, so search it out if you can. If you can't get a hold of it, that's fine. Just add a little extra soy sauce just for some extra kind of flavor. All right, let's get stir frying. To make your gravy sauce, empty the oil out from your wok and then add in just a tablespoon of vegetable oil when your wok is hot, the tao gio, and your protein. My proteins now are pretty much cooked or almost cooked, so I'm going to go in with some chicken stock. This is the kind of smell, like that beautiful, like savory broth gravy. You know, when my mum used to make this for me when I was little, I loved it so much. It's just one of those lovely classic like Thai Chinese kind of flavors for me. Soy, kind of sesame broth, so good. And now we can add the seasonings. I've got oyster sauce, soy sauce, a little bit of sugar, and some sesame oil. Vegetables go in now, so I've just got here some carrot and some baby corn. Got some green leaves here. This is from Chinese broccoli. Just give those vegetables just a couple of minutes here. And then we have this lovely broth here, which we're now going to turn into a gravy by adding a potato starch slurry. So this is potato starch mixed with some water. You could also use tapioca starch or corn flour, but once you add it in, it almost magically turns everything into a thick, shiny gravy, like within 30 seconds or so. Oh, look at that, so shiny and amazing. Oh, I'm so excited already. Okay, one final thing, we need to heat up our hot plate. My hot plate is smoking, and I mean really smoking, so I'm going to get it onto its little wooden base here. You can find this sort of like hot plate situation at a lot of Asian grocery stores. Now let's get moving quickly here. My egg goes on top. Egg and noodle, I should say. Whew. All right, this is where we get really dramatic. Oh, so fun! Oh, it's just like being on the street in Bangkok. This is such a fun but delicious way to enjoy this dish at home. The fancy lat na, I love it. Okay, final little touch here. My mum's lat na always had white pepper. And there you go, my friends. A fancy Chinatown version of lat na at home. Sizzling lat na. Oh, so good. Now let's see if I succeeded in my quest for the perfect yolk. Whoa, look at that. Look at that yolk. Oh my goodness. The noodle, egg yolk, the gravy. Oh my goodness. Wow. I don't think I can ever eat my mum's lat na again. I love the crispiness of that rice noodle. Oh my goodness. And that egg yolk, gravy. Yes. Just gonna stand here and eat all of this right now. See ya. So good. Actually, during the day, you get a really good look at local life, and there are so many like hidden secrets. It's like a treasure trove of street eats. Let me show you. Can't wait. It's a noodle that's sort of rolled up. Beautiful. I am always in the mood for a steamed bun when I'm in Bangkok, but I'm particularly excited about these salad bao. So in Thailand we call the steamed buns salad bao, and These steamed buns are really special. So they've been made by this family for 5 generations now. The recipe is over 100 years old. The dough itself is quite unusual. So it's actually got sweet potato mixed into the dough, which lends it apparently sweetness and texture. But let's get in here and try these, because I've made a lot of salad bao and bao buns in my time, but I've never made one with sweet potatoes. So I'm really interested to see what the dough is like. This is the pork and salted egg version. Let me open this up. Oh yeah, wow. So you can see this is the salted egg here, the pork filling. That dough looks really lovely and fluffy. Slight yellow tinge, I'm assuming, from the sweet potato. Oh wow. This is a really great version of salad bao. So pork is so savory, and that salted egg, the umami flavor is really beautiful from that salted egg. Oh, wow. Oh my goodness. This is why I love Thailand in general. You can just walk down the street and find cool stuff like this everywhere. There are a lot of different ways to make bao buns, or salad bao as we call them in Thailand. But I think there's a couple of key things that you really want to get right. One is the dough itself. Now I'm going to go with the very traditional sweet potato version, and we'll talk about sweet potato later. The same kind of dough that we tried at the shop house in Chinatown. 2, you want to get the filling right. So I'm going with that pork and the salted egg filling that we tried as well. And 3, you just want to eat some really good bao, really. Now I'm going to start off with the dough first of all. Add some cake flour into a bowl. Now add in the yeast mixture and give that a really light mix. So cake flour has a lower protein content, and you get like a dough that's softer and more pliable. And this is kind of fairly important if you want to get a really lovely fluffy texture. I've made this with all-purpose flour as well. It's totally fine, but if you can get the cake flour, that's a really good way to go. It's going to look a little lumpy and kind of a little ugly at the moment. Definitely not Instagram ready, but this sits aside for about 30-45 minutes, or until it's kind of really relaxed. Come back and I'll show you. Okay, so here we are after 45 minutes. You can see we're kind of a bit sticky and gloopy in here. And now I'm going to add the rest of the ingredients. So I have some more of my cake flour, baking powder. Now all of the quantities for this recipe are up on my website, and you guys are often asking me, why don't I just say the recipes? Well, you know, because I have friends in Australia and the US that watch these videos, and saying things like grams and ounces and different like measurement cups and all those things gets a little confusing. So if you'd like the full recipe, just head to the link below in the description and you'll have it in your converted measurements. Now I'm going to use my mixer with the paddle attachment and mix it for 5 minutes. At this point, you're going to have a situation that looks like this. Kind of a little lumpy, doesn't look great yet, but it will, don't worry. Now I'm going to change my paddle attachment to my hook. Now I'm going to put my sweet potato into the bowl here. Once you add that into your flour, you can add the sugar and some oil. Now you might notice that this sweet potato is not the orange type of sweet potato that you might find generally in countries outside of Thailand, say in the US or Australia. This is a type of Japanese sweet potato. And to get to this mashed point, I steamed the Japanese sweet potato in a steamer basket until tender, about 15 or 20 minutes. And then I peel the skin off and then push it through a sieve so I get a really fine mash. And you can see as this kind of sits, it'll turn a slightly green color. The flavor here is sweet potato-ish, but it is, I think, less sweet than say your regular orange sweet potato, and certainly it's a lot drier. Now I'm going to give this a mix for about 15 minutes. It's going to start off looking kind of pretty lumpy, but trust me, it will get to a really smooth, lovely stage towards the end. Mix on medium speed for 15 minutes until you get this really lovely elastic looking dough. You can also do this by hand if you'd like to, but you might just need to add some extra flour because the dough is quite wet. It is a little harder to work with than your regular bao dough. And as I said, I have loads of recipes for a very simple kind of bao dough that you could use instead of this one. But let me show you how to work with this one. So just flour your bench top so it doesn't stick. And then ease your dough out to the bench top. I'm just forming like a log shape here so I can more easily cut this into even 24 pieces. That is quite a sticky dough, so make sure you've got lots of flour to keep it from sticking. And then I like to start off by rolling these into a little ball. Let's pop them on a tray with some baking paper. And these need a little bit of beauty rest, so just pop a clean tea towel or some cheesecloth over the top and let them rest for an hour. So in the meantime, we can make the filling. So the filling for a salad bao here in Thailand is quite different to say like the traditional Chinese pork bun filling, which is very soft and kind of sticky. So our filling tends to be like a firm kind of meatball in the center, if you like, but it does have a lot of flavoring in it as well. And let me show you how to get the right texture and flavor. So I'm going to start off with my white peppercorns that I've toasted, coriander seeds that have also been toasted. My spices go into the bowl. I've got some pork mince. Now this guy here is some crunchy bits. In Thai we call it man gao. Is that right? Man gao. Man gao. Thanks, Trust. I really got to work on my Thai pronunciation. I grew up in Australia, even though I have a Thai mum, so I need some help. Anyway, how about we make this a little more simple? It's also often called jicama or a Mexican turnip, or if you can't get a hold of the yam, you could also use water chestnuts, which is very easy to find in like cans in your Asian grocery store. I have some shiitake mushrooms. These were dried. I just soaked them, squeezed out the liquid, and then finely chopped them. Some spring onion. And now we've got the seasonings. So, soy sauce, oyster sauce, fish sauce. And I was also talking about texture earlier and that kind of like firm meatball texture. Now the way to get that is to add some tapioca starch. You could also use potato starch or corn flour, and that kind of mixes with everything and almost like kind of firms up your meatball. Now I'm gonna give all of this a really good mix. And again, the texture here is important. We wanna keep mixing till everything becomes really sticky. So you can see here, this is the kind of situation we're looking for. The mixture looks very smooth, very sticky. That's good to go. Now we can get to the part that I guess is a little tricky, which is the folding. But don't worry, we're gonna do it together. I'm gonna show you how. Start off by taking one of your balls. Make sure you've got a lot of flour on your board here as well. And just start by rolling out a nice little circle. And then what I like to do is roll the outside or the edges of that wrapper so they're a little bit thinner around the edge. So you have a nice fat base in the middle, and then you've got a thinner edge because of course we're going to pleat that edge. So we want it a little bit thinner than the base. Spoonful of your filling, just a little bit of boiled salted egg yolk. So you can get salted eggs from your Asian grocery store, and it's the center part or the yolk part that you want for this. And then here's my tip for folding this kind of bun, if you like. So grab a hold of a piece with your two fingers like this, thumb and forefinger, and then the other hand, the other forefinger, kind of like feeds that pincer grip. And you're just pleating and going around, pleating, 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 pleating until you get around completely, and then just kind of like pinch off the top, and you're left with a lovely, gorgeous, pleated, round, cute little bun. Oh, so cute. I mean, I'm not going to say I have the skills of those amazing people at the shop house in Chinatown, but like that's pretty good. I'm happy with that. All right, so you just keep going until you've filled all of your wrappers. When you're ready to cook, place the bamboo steamer on top of a pot full of boiling water and cook for 12 minutes. All right, this is the exciting part. I love that moment. It's so dramatic. So there you go, my friends. Look at those, so cute. Now you can pop them on a serving plate if you like. Now I loved these when I tried them in Chinatown, but you know what? I'm not always in Bangkok. You know, I live most of my time in Australia and I just can't get to Bangkok's Chinatown to eat these whenever I like. So being able to make them at home is really great. And just have a look in there, you know, look at that beautiful fluffy dough. And then look at that filling, really lovely and juicy. Wow. So good. That porky filling is so delicious and savory with all those beautiful aromatics. And that dough, I've made much simpler bao doughs, but this one has a really like complex, lovely flavor, and it's really light and fluffy. Is it worth making at home? I think so. So good. Come down this little alleyway and sitting here like in a little slice of local Chinese life. So across here we have a stall where local people would buy all of their Chinese kind of ceremonial things. Now this dish historically was a dish that Chinese laborers would order and eat because obviously, you know, it was very cheap. There's a high amount of noodle and carbs, small amount of meat, a little bit of vegetables as well. I've got choy sum here. Now the noodles themselves, egg noodles that have been tossed in a little bit of the braising liquid from the pork, and the pork on the top here has been braised as well. So I want to go in here and try this. I think for me, like a lot of times you think about street food and you think of so much action and fire and lots of flavor and chili and all these things. That's kind of the idea of what you have of Thai street food, right? But sometimes the beauty is in the really simple things like noodles like this that are cooked to perfection, springy. You know, I can taste the actual noodle themselves and just a whisper of that kind of like fatty pork kind of flavor like around the noodle. It's beautifully simple and delicious. That pork is really tender. Just a little bit sweet, but again, it just tastes of itself. This dish is simplicity in its most beautiful state. I mean, the ingredients themselves are very humble. Egg noodles, some green vegetables, some pork, but the way we cook it and the attention to detail, now that's what makes this dish really special. So come with me, my friends. We are going to make banh mi chap gang. The thing that stood out the most to me when I was eating this dish in Chinatown was actually the amount of noodles in the bowl. The noodles from the street vendor were actually homemade, so it is really important that you do find some fresh Chinese egg noodles that are really high quality. So head to your Asian grocer to find them. But the point is that you want a lot of noodles. So if you have a look here, I have a massive plate of noodles here. So I wanted to talk noodles first of all because they are to me the most important part of the dish, but the other important part is the pork itself. So I'm going to be using some pork shoulder here. Pork shoulder is a secondary cut, so it's going to kind of tenderize and get really lovely and soft in our braising liquid. So start off just with some boiling water, add in your pork. And for the aromatics, I have some coriander root. Now what I do want to do here is bruise this so it releases more of its flavor, and then some garlic, and they go in with my pork. I've also got some white peppercorns. Now, I think in Thailand here, we do use a lot more white peppercorn than we do black peppercorn. It's something I've always taken for granted. My mum has always done the same thing, but I was thinking about it the other day and I thought it was worth explaining that with the white peppercorn, you kind of get, it's a little bit more of a milder pepper flavor rather than black peppercorn, which has a very sharp, astringent flavor. It's kind of just like a characteristic flavor that we use a lot in Thai cooking. So there you go, white peppercorns and some soy sauce. Bring that up to a boil, put the lid on, and let that simmer away for 2 hours. All right, things are smelling very, very good in my kitchen right now. And at this point, one really big tip here, guys, is to let the pork cool down actually in this braising liquid. I think that keeps the pork a lot more tender and keeps it a lot juicier as well. So I've turned the heat off and I'm gonna let that pork cool down completely in here, and then we can slice and get our noodle bowl ready. At this point, my pork has cooled down, and this is something you could do the day before you wanted to do this dish as well. Break it down into more manageable chunks. It's gonna make some nice slices here. Oh, look at that, you can just see how tender that pork is. Yum, smells beautiful. The cooking liquid itself needs to be strained, and just save that for later. And now let's talk about vegetables. So here in Thailand, this is a very common vegetable we call guangdong, and you might know it elsewhere in the world, in Australia or the US, as choy sam. I think a really good way to preserve its color and its crunch is to do a little bit of an extra step in the technique of cooking it here. And you want like a pretty big, like 2 handful kind of bunch of your choy sam here. Cook that in the boiling water for like literally 30 seconds or so. I want to keep this nice and crunchy. Then decant into a bowl of iced water. This really lets the flavor of the vegetable shine. It crisps it up, keeps it nice and green. It's optional. If you just want to cook your vegetable, put it straight onto your noodle bowl, hey, I'm okay with that. Squeeze out most of the water from the vegetables, and then you've got your pork and your greens ready to go. Okay, my friends, we are now at the most critical part of the recipe. I don't want to scare you or anything, but everything here has to happen very quickly in order for it all to work together into that beautiful symphony of flavors at the end that I want to create. So pop your noodles into the boiling water, and again, don't overcook anything here. 30 seconds, literally. You can time it if you want to. Is that 30 seconds? Is it 30 seconds, you reckon, Nia? Who's counting? Trust is counting. Okay, trust. 3, 2, 1. All right, let's go. Put them into large bowl. Sprinkling of sugar now. Add in 1/2 cup of the cooking liquid from the pork. Give that a really good mix, and then add in a tablespoon of pork lard. You can get pork lard from your supermarket, typically in the fridge section near the butter, but just let it soften up and turn into a bit of a liquid form before you add it in here. This is the secret ingredient, right? That's gonna give you that authentic flavor. Toss everything together and keep tossing until all the noodles are beautifully coated. That looks so good. It smells really good too. Pop your noodles onto your serving bowl. I need some pork, green vegetables. And that, my friends, looks deceptively simple, but oh my goodness, the flavor here, I'm very excited. Now, what I would do if I was on the street eating this is use my little set of condiments here, which you always find on the table. I've got some chili powder, a little bit of fish sauce. Wow, guys, if you're gonna make one simple noodle dish, this has to be the one. You know, if I'm slurping and making noises, it's good.
I don't want to keep eating, but I want to keep eating. You know what I mean? I don't know what to do.